Let's just see. Okay. I think this is all set up and going. We're live. Hey, how's it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, July the 6th. And the way this is right now, I have two live video chats going. I have one here on YouTube, another one streaming on Facebook. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone here, having a double live video chat, same content, but just having it streaming from two different platforms. So the way these chats work is I will be answering questions that you submit during these video chats. So if there's anything you would like to discuss with regards to bodybuilding, fitness, exercise, nutrition, any specific challenges that you may be dealing with when it comes to your workouts, your nutrition program, or anything like that, feel free to post those in our video chat window there, and I'll do my best to help you out in any way that I can. So I'll probably be bouncing back and forth between the YouTube chat answering questions, bouncing over to the Facebook chat answering some questions. So again, just wanted to let you know the two chats are going simultaneously here, regardless of which platform you're watching on. And of course, before I get started, just want to make sure that everything's coming through loud and clear. So I have some people already chiming in here on YouTube saying things are coming through good, sounds perfect. For people over here on Facebook, can you hear me loud and clear? I'm assuming you can. There's comments coming through, but I would appreciate it if you just post a comment saying, yes, we can hear you, see you, coming through loud and clear, just to make sure that everything is working before I get into actually answering your questions here this afternoon. Okay, still no comments here on Facebook. I'm hoping that I have my audio set up here on the Facebook side of things. Anyone joining it, just say yes, I can hear you, yes, I can see you. I would really appreciate it. Hear you loud and clear. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Good stuff. All right, well, let's just jump right into it. Sip good old coffee. First off, I missed last week's video chat. I normally like to do these video chats every Friday afternoon, but I missed last week's video chat because I was away competing in Targa, Newfoundland, Bambina, which is a weekend road rally race here in Newfoundland. And myself and my dad competed in that this past weekend and had a lot of fun. It went really well. For those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen some pictures and video clips that I've posted there. I don't have any up on YouTube yet, but I have posted some there on Facebook, and it was a heck of a lot of fun. We did very well with the rallying, zeroed most of the stages, except during one of the stages, we actually had some mechanical issues. The throttle cable bracket broke on the race car. And because of that, I couldn't complete that stage. And when you can't complete a stage, you get a penalty plus the slowest car's time. So due to that penalty, that kind of knocked us out of running for first place. But nonetheless, I was still happy with it. Still had a great time. And of course, my dad loves it as well. So it's a great little father and son adventure. And I'll probably post some video clips from that weekend rally, Targa, Newfoundland, Bambina. I'll post some clips of that up on the YouTube channel as well. But there's already several of them on my Facebook page. So if you were following me on Facebook, you can certainly check them out there. So anyway, back to normal schedule again. Okay, let's see what we got. We got Matthew joining us, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Matthew's probably joining us on both ends here on Facebook and YouTube, which is pretty cool. Okay. Cass, Reel, and Ketchen from Arizona saying, how can I lose my pecs? They have fat. Man boobs. That's what you call it when you got pecs with excess body fat. Man, when it comes to losing body fat, you can't spot reduce it. I mean, a lot of people like to, okay, I want to lose belly fat, or I want to lose chest fat, or I want to lose whatever. Like a lot of women say, I want to lose, leg fat. You can't really pick and choose where you lose fat. You have to lose fat from all over. So it comes down to proper nutrition, cardio, and weight training. You need a combination of all three. One of the common misconceptions, I'm actually getting a lot of questions from people thinking that if they have a lot of fat to lose, that, okay, they need to lose the fat first before they start weight training. And that is a misconception. In order to lose fat, in the most optimal fashion, it requires a combination of weight training in order to stimulate lean muscle growth and in order to improve your metabolism and enhance fat burning. It requires cardiovascular exercise to do some direct fat burning exercise, followed up with proper nutrition in order to make sure that you're in a caloric deficit and that you're actually tapping into burning stored body fat for fuel. So you really need to focus on all three of those elements. And the way it works a lot of times is when you're losing body fat, it can be a frustrating process because sometimes the most stubborn areas are the last to burn. So for example, if you have stubborn belly fat, or if you have stubborn chest fat, or you have stubborn, thigh fat, or wherever you carry your stubborn fat, a lot of times that is the last area to lose. Very often people will get leaner in their easier to lose body parts first before they start tapping into that stubborn body fat afterwards. So the real secret to it is to diet long enough in order to really tap into burning that stubborn body fat. And it's not something that's going to happen in the matter of a few weeks. This is something you really need to commit to over the long term in order to really see some noticeable progress. And kind of put things in perspective, I'll use myself as an example. I mean, back when I was competing in bodybuilding competitions, I would give myself 6 months to diet down for a competition. And that's starting from a relatively lean physique to begin with. Now, I mean, it would be an off-season bodybuilding physique, but by average standards, it was a relatively lean physique to begin with. But even then, I would still give myself a minimum of 6 months to prepare in order to lose that body fat slowly but surely and get the ripped definition that I needed to in order to compete on stage. So if you're looking to lose stubborn body fat, give yourself enough time to do it. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is they don't allow enough time. I mean, when it comes to fat loss, you can't really force your body to burn fat faster, but you can diet longer. I mean, you can only lose it so fast before you start suffering metabolic problems. I mean, where your metabolism starts to slow down, you start to lose lean muscle tissue. So the secret to fat loss is not dieting harder, but dieting longer. And that's the key right there. So if you do that, then it's only a matter of time before you burn out that stubborn body fat. And that applies to wherever it be. It be the stubborn man boobs, stubborn belly fat, or wherever the fat may be. All right, so that was Cast and Reel from YouTube over there. I'm going to answer some questions over here on the Facebook chat. So let's just scroll back up to the top. We got Marcus joining us. He's saying, hope Trish and the baby are good, and they are. They were actually out for a walk before we went on this video chat, and yesterday we were out for a family adventure. There's a nice walking trail right by here. It's called the Manuals River Trail, and we go up there almost every sunny day, take little Harvey up there for a walk. And yesterday was the first day that we actually let him out of the stroller, and he walked along with us for a while, and he walked over a half a mile for sure. I mean, he's only 21 months old. But he walked over a half a mile on his own, or I should say run. He didn't walk, he ran, right? But again, it was a lot of fun. So like I say, he's getting bigger by the day. And like literally, I can see changes every single week, which is really fun and exciting to see. We have Michael joining us from Puerto Rico. We have Todd joining us, and Trevor, Sanjay. Okay, Sanjay's got a question. He says, Lee, how do you cook chicken in bulk? If I'm going to cook chicken in bulk, I find the easiest way to do it is I will get a baking sheet, big cookie sheet, baking sheet, and I will very often line that with tin foil, spray the tin foil with a nonstick spray, something like Pam cooking spray or their whatever particular brand you like to use. I actually use one that Costco makes. It's their own Kirkland brand, and I find that it works really well. So I'll spray the tinfoil lined cooking sheet with that, and I will just lay the chicken breasts out on the baking sheet. Spice them up with whatever kind of seasonings and spices you like. I usually use salt, pepper, maybe some garlic and herbs. Sometimes I'll put like a little bit of chili peppers on them, whatever I'm in the mood for, but season the chicken breasts with whatever you want, and then I'll bake them in the oven. And that's, I find, the easiest way to cook a lot of chicken. And then you have a whole tray of chicken cooked up, and what I'll do then is I'll store that in Tupperware containers in the refrigerator for when I want to heat it up later. And I find that it's quite tasty, and it doesn't have that soggy, bland taste of like boiled chicken, right? I mean, there's nothing worse than boiled chicken. That's the most plain as bland as meal there is, right? But I find if you have baked chicken with some nice seasoning and spices on it, it actually has a really nice flavor, and it's a very easy way to cook up a lot of chicken in bulk. So if I'm doing that, if I'm cooking chickens in bulk, that's what I'll do. I'll cook it up on a baking sheet in the oven. All right, back over to the YouTube chat, see what we got coming through. Have Ken joining us, Ken Becker, and he says, Lee, if the main goal is dropping body fat, do you think 3 resistance days aiming for strength gains and lower volume a week while staying in a caloric deficit is a good strategy? It really depends on your schedule, how much time you can commit to your training. I find the more frequent you can work out while you're cutting, the faster you're going to lose body fat, because you're going to expend more calories. You're going to burn more energy, burn more fat, training more frequently. So I will very often try and schedule in a daily weight training workout if possible. I also like to try and schedule in a daily cardio session if possible. And of course, I'll adjust the intensity of those sessions based on how I'm feeling. But try and get the frequency up in order to maximize your metabolism and to just burn more calories. So if you can, rather than doing 3 big weight training workouts a week, I would rather you do 6 smaller weight training workouts a week. You know, instead of going into the gym, say 2 hours for 3 days a week, I'd rather you go into the gym for 1 hour, 6 days a week. The total volume is the same both ways, but it's just spiking your metabolism more so that you get that metabolic boost, and it helps to aid with fat loss. Same when it comes to cardio. I'd rather you do more frequent cardio sessions. And the ideal scenario, if we're going to look at the best scenario for burning fat, I would recommend doing weight training and cardio in separate sessions on the same day. So for example, you might want to start your day with a cardio session first thing in the morning, then do your weight training later in the afternoon, or vice versa, depending on your personal preference and schedule. It really doesn't matter. But by having 2 exercise sessions in one day, what you'll find is you'll spike your metabolism twice. So rather than having 1 big workout and 1 metabolic spike, you'll have 2 smaller workouts and 2 metabolic spikes. So it actually helps to burn more total calories over the course of the day because you're spiking your metabolism more often. That's what I would recommend as the ideal situation. But if you can't do that due to your work schedule, due to family commitments, or whatever else you got going on in your life, make the best with what you have. I mean, even if you can only get to the gym 3 days a week, you can still make progress provided that your diet's in check and that you're doing the best you can when it comes to your training and your cardio. Another thing you need to look at when it comes to fat loss is when you're doing extra cardio, it doesn't have to be some formal go to the gym cardio session. You know, it doesn't have to be using the cardio equipment at the gym. It doesn't have to be running on the track or anything like that. I mean, you could pack your sneakers with you and go for a walk on your lunch break at work. You know, I mean, walking is one of the best forms of cardio you can do, especially for fat loss, and you can do it anywhere, anytime, right? I mean, you don't even need to change into your gym clothes, right? Just take a pair of sneakers with you and go for a walk. And that's something that I like to do a lot. I mean, just get out walking. I mean, back when I was going to college, you know, I would often take my sneakers with me, or just wear my sneakers. That was my footwear, and go for a walk on my lunch breaks, you know, or go for a walk after school or before school or whatever. I mean, just getting outside as often as you can, and for short walks like that is a great way to bump up your overall activity level and also aid with fat loss. So again, the more activity you do within reason, the better it's going to be for fat loss. All right, we got another question here. This one's from Moses Escobar, and he's saying, is it okay to drink a whey protein shake before bed? Yes, you can certainly do that if you choose to do so. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you want to, like, you needed to meet your protein intake needs for the day, certainly you could top it up at the end of the day with a whey shake. I know some people like to have that slow digesting protein, like they might have the casein or something else that's slower digesting, but in the greater scheme of things, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. What matters the most is the total protein intake, not necessarily if it's a fast or a slow digesting protein. Now, I mean, if you're having pre or post-workout protein, I would recommend trying to have something that is a faster digesting, such as a whey shake. But you can also have that at other times of the day as well. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be before bed, slow digesting protein. You know, what matters the most is your total protein. So it could be a protein shake before bed. It could be some sort of solid protein food. And, you know, it really doesn't matter. What matters the most is that you're meeting your ideal protein intake needs. And for most people, that's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass per day. Now, depending on what you're training for and your individual body type, it may be higher or lower, but somewhere in that 1 gram per pound of lean mass per day is a good ballpark for most people. Okay, let's see what else. I'm going to jump back over to the Facebook chat and see what else we got going over here. Okay. Okay, we've got Lars joining us, James is joining us, Michael is joining us, Amir is joining us. What can we do for elbow pain? Should I stop lifting heavy? Well, Amir, that really depends on what kind of elbow pain you're dealing with. There's a lot of different elbow pain, from like elbow tendonitis. It could be like a tennis elbow. It could be a golfer's elbow. It could be some sort of pain in the actual elbow joint itself. I really need to know more about it in order to kind of dive in deeper to this question. But I'll give you some practical things that you can do. First off, if you are suffering from elbow pain or any joint pain for that matter, make sure that you do a thorough warm-up before you get into your actual workout. So lots of light mobility exercises to warm up that elbow joint. I mean, it could be just some general movements like arm circles and different types of rotations with your arms to start off, then some very light exercises. I like to use rubber fitness bands a lot of times when I'm doing mobility exercises. So some like light rubber band push downs to help warm up the elbow joint. And when you're choosing your weight training exercises, be very cautious about the movements that you do. If there's any particular movement that causes pain or discomfort, don't do that movement. Try something else instead. So for example, if you're doing like a heavy skull crusher and that just kills your elbows, well, don't do heavy skull crushers. Try to find something else instead. More often than not, machines and cables and rubber fitness bands tend to be easier on the joints than heavy free weights. So you might want to opt for more machine and cable exercises rather than heavy free weight barbell dumbbell exercises. I find that helps to work around joint pain, especially elbow joint pain. You may want to even slack off the isolation exercises if they cause problems. You know, instead of doing like direct tricep isolation work, maybe just let your triceps get worked as secondary muscles when you're doing your bench presses or shoulder presses. You know, a lot of times doing the pressing exercises probably won't cause as much pain and aggravation as doing a heavy isolation exercise where you're really straining the elbow directly. What else can I suggest there? Play around with your sets and reps, and of course the weights that you're lifting, because sometimes if you're lifting really heavy, obviously that's going to place a lot of strain on the joint. Sometimes if you're doing a lot of high repetitions or high sets, that can also place a lot of strain on the joint. So you may want to do like a modified workout where you're just doing basically a maintenance workout to work around that pain, so that you're doing enough to kind of stimulate some muscle growth, but not enough that you're actually going to cause much damage to that area. You're not going to kind of break it down. You're just kind of doing a little bit of active recovery stimulation, and that very often helps. Another thing that you can probably try doing as well is high repetition rubber band exercises. This is something that I learned from the old West Side Barbell tapes back in the day. One of the things, the assistant exercises that they used to do for bringing up like your pressing exercises, like your bench press, is high repetition rubber band pushdowns. So take an easy rubber band. I mean, it depends on your own individual strength and what kind of rubber band you have, but just basically hook, say, like a rubber band over a chin-up bar or something like that, and just do high repetition pushdowns. Shoot for like 50 total reps, and just the movement and the lactic acid burn that you get from the high repetitions is a great way to help stimulate that whole area and help promote recovery. because it's not heavy enough that it's going to cause things to break down or cause any damage, but you are getting a lot of blood flow and circulation, and of course the lactic acid buildup in the muscles, and that also helps to aid with recovery as well. So that's one of the things that I've used myself, is very lightweight, high repetition, isolation exercises with a movement that you can comfortably do. So tricep push downs with a rubber band would be perfect for elbow pain. If you don't have rubber bands, you could probably do like a rope push down on a cable machine, but something along those lines for high reps, done frequently. I mean, this is something that you could probably do on a daily or every other day basis, just to try and get some stimulation and blood flow and circulation into that area. But those are some things that I've used myself to work around elbow pain. You could also, try wearing like elastic wraps or elbow sleeves. You can pick these up at most sporting goods stores, or you can even go online and just do a search for like elbow support sleeves. These are something that you can wear during your workouts to help provide a little bit of extra support and also keep the joint warm while you train. If you keep your joints warm, that's going to make the workouts more comfortable and also less risk of injury. So you can definitely try that as well. But those are a few tips that you can incorporate, and hopefully they will provide some benefit for you. All right, back over to the other video chat. We have Daniel is joining us. This is summer is here. How can I build big calves quickly? Any tips or tricks? All right, summer's here. Sun's out. The shorts out, and now the skinny chicken leg calves are out as well. Building big calves quickly. Unfortunately, there's no one side, like there's no magic solution here that's just going to boom, throw an inch on your calves overnight. It just doesn't work that way. But you can definitely make improvements regardless of whatever situation you're in. One of the things you need to realize with the calves is they are a small muscle group. They're a very tough muscle. They're used to a lot of volume because every time you walk or climb stairs or do anything, your calves are working. I mean, they're constantly getting a lot of stimulation. A lot of stimulation in the mid-range, meaning that you're not really getting a full stretch or full peak contraction. Most of the time when you're walking, climbing stairs, just standing and doing your thing, your calves are working in the mid-range. So in order to really stimulate them, you want to get outside of that mid-range. So when you're doing your calf work, be it like standing calf raises, seated calf raises, or body weight calf raises, whatever, make sure that you go through that full range of motion. When you're doing them, let your heels sink all the way down and get a full stretch in the bottom, and then come all the way up on your tippy toes and get a full peak contraction at the top. And really emphasize that with every repetition. I don't really care how many reps you do. I'd rather you do fewer reps, but better quality reps than these short little choppy pumping reps that you see most guys doing in the gym. So moderate weight, really focusing on that stretch and the peak contraction, trying to get that mind muscle connection with your calves. And you can train them frequently. I mean, I recommend starting off like every other day and see how that works, because again, they're a very small muscle group, and it's not going to take away from your other workouts. I mean, for example, if you rep out to failure with calf raises, yeah, your calves are going to be pumped and burned, but you're not going to feel exhausted. It's not like repping out to failure with a set of squats where your whole body just feels exhausted and drained. With the calves, it's not physically exhausting. It's not going to stress your central nervous system and cause you to overtrain because you're doing extra calf work. So it's one of those body parts that you can train more frequently without really overtraining your central nervous system as a whole. So that's what I'd recommend, is trying to bump up the frequency and really focus on the quality of the repetitions that you're doing. And you don't need a lot of exercises for calves. You could do standing calf raises and seated calf raises, and you basically got it covered, because you're doing a calf raise variation with a straight leg, and you're doing a calf raise variation with a bent leg. And both different variations work different aspects of the calves. So if you want a complete calf workout, make sure to do a straight leg with your knees locked out variation, and do a bent leg variation such as a seated calf raise. If you do that, then you basically got it covered. And then it's just frequency, getting in there, training them, say 3 days a week. If that works fine, then you could even bump it up to even more frequency. but always listen to your body and adjust it based on how you feel, and of course, based on how your body's responding. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else we got. We have Carter joining us. He says, just wanted to say hello. Well, hello, Carter. Thanks for tuning in. Andrew is joining us, and he says that he has bruised ribs due to a car accident, and he wants to know how long should he lay off core and chest workouts. Well, my friend, I really can't offer a specific answer to that because I don't know your individual situation. What I'm going to suggest here is you're going to have to work within your individual pain threshold. Hopefully, you've probably been to see a doctor or a physiotherapist or some sort of medical professional to get a diagnosis of your situation and to figure out, how much damage you've got done. And maybe they'd be able to suggest something more specific to your situation. But bottom line, when it comes to working around injuries, you need to work within your pain threshold. So you'll probably be able to train, your core and your chest sooner than you realize, but the intensity and the weight that you're going to be lifting is going to be very light. When you start back, you're literally just going to go through the motions with your workouts. So it's going to be very light. Like it could be, doing a chest press machine with 10 pounds on the machine, just going through the motions. That's all it is. If you're going to do a bench press, it'll be, just the empty barbell, just very light movements. That's all you want to do at this stage, is just to kind of get the movement pattern. And what you can do then is, if the movement itself feels comfortable, you can gradually work on increasing the weight. So to put it in perspective, let's say we're doing an empty barbell bench press. So that's what you do this week. Next week, if you're feeling good, put 5 pounds on the barbell, a 2.5 pound plate on each side. That feels good. The next week, put another 2.5 pound plate on each side, and just gradually build yourself up baby step by baby step like that. And over the course of several weeks, you'll gradually get up to lifting decent weight again. And this is how I've recovered from various injuries over the years. Like I've had a few torn muscles, and this is how I've gotten myself back into training again. So you can train relatively quickly after the injury, but the intensity and the volume and of those workouts are peanuts. Again, it's just going through the motions and then gradually, ever so slowly, building it up, bit by bit, week by week, until you get up to the point where you're actually doing a decent workout that's challenging and actually putting some stimulation on the muscles. But it is unfortunate that you had that injury, and like I say, hopefully, I wish you all the best with your recovery, and hopefully it's a quick and speedy one. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. We got Scott joining us. Let's see. Steve is joining us. Penkaja, I guess. Penkaja is joining us. How important is reducing sugar from your diet? I think this is a big one. Processed sugar is a big no-no when it comes to nutrition. I mean, if you Google search it and you read even the mainstream media, sugar, especially the processed sugars, is something that you want to eliminate from your diet as much as possible, and just eat natural, unprocessed foods, because the sugars are going to cause inflammation. They're going to cause spikes in insulin. It's just empty calories. If you are going to get sugar from your diet, try and get it from natural sources, as in fruit, berries, the sugar that's going to be found in some of the vegetables that you eat, natural, unprocessed sources of sugar, not sugar from sweeteners and sauces and things like that. So, if you want to get leaner, more muscular, have less inflammation, feel better, reducing sugar from your diet is huge. It'll help with all of the above right there. So yeah, it's, if you want to get more information about it, just do a Google search for it. You'll get so much more information than I can cover right here on this video chat. Jay is joining us. Says, I saw your video about occlusion training. What was your final thought on that type of training? Worth it or not? Cool. Blood flow restriction training, i.e. occlusion training. I did it for some arm training, And I have to be honest, I didn't really stick to it over the long term, just because it's sometimes a bit of a pain in the ass to put on those bands and to work out. One of the things, I mean, I did get a killer pump from it, no doubt about that. I mean, I would get an awesome pump, but your strength is not going to be as great, because you kind of have that, you get pumped to the point where your strength actually diminishes, if that makes sense. People who, I'm sure some people can relate to this, but I would get so pumped that my strength would diminish. So I found that was an issue. But I think it's definitely worthwhile. I mean, I've done it myself, and I've seen some positive results. It's not like life-changing, earth-shattering results, but it is noticeable. If you do have a stubborn body part, i.e., your arms are stubborn and you want to bring them up, I think it's definitely worth experimenting with. But is it like a must-do, or is it something that's critical, meaning that if you don't do it, you're not going to make gains? Absolutely not. I mean, you can still make gains just with regular training without using blood flow restriction. But it's kind of just an extra tool in the toolbox, if you will, that if you've kind of tried most conventional methods and you're not seeing the results that you want, and you want to try something else, then I think the blood flow restriction, occlusion training, however you want to call it, I think it's definitely a strategy that you can look into doing. But it's not earth-shattering by any means, put it that way. I've got Matthew joining us, and he's saying, I'm still cutting weight, doing very good, lots of amount of weight. Sorry, that was a typo. Lost a good amount of weight in a healthy way. All right, that's awesome, Matthew. I actually know Matthew personally. He used to, I actually used to train at the same gym that he did in Mount Pearl. So again, that's awesome, Matthew. I'm glad to hear that you're on the right track when it comes to cutting weight. And darn well, as you're going through this process, it's a slow, steady, and consistency is the name of the game. But again, kudos to you for doing that. Someone's saying, I'm losing you on Facebook. I'm switching to YouTube. Hopefully it's coming through loud and clear on both ends of the spectrum. I mean, seems like I have a hardwired connection here on both. So, but if you find that one is not coming through as loud and clear, then yeah, by all means, try the other. That was from Jesse. We have Lara's joining us. It says, I'm not dieting or cutting, but eventually when I get stronger in the bench press over time, said he lost his man boobs. Okay, so simply building more muscle helped with correcting the man boobs issue. And that, I guess, is a response to one of the previous questions we had earlier, where a guy was asking about how do you lose the man boobs. Okay. Here's another question. This is a good one, and then I'm going to jump back over to the other video chat. Daniel is asking ways to stick to a diet. He says he keeps messing it up. This is a good one, and I think everyone's going to be able to relate to this to some degree, because nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to have issues where they slip up, they screw up on their diet, regardless of how disciplined you may be. Sometimes life's going to get in the way. Shit happens, whatever. I mean, you're going to screw up from time to time. This applies to anybody, regardless if you're just a weekend warrior or you're a professional athlete. What matters the most is not the fact that you screwed up, but how fast can you get back on track. The faster you can get back on track, that's what's going to make the biggest difference. Because a lot of people, if they mess up, they screw up a meal, for example, they'll probably say, oh, well, I blew it today, I'll start my diet again tomorrow. And by doing that, you're putting yourself further behind. Some people even take that to a further extreme. They follow a diet, let's say, okay, I'll start my diet on Monday. They start their diet on Monday, and then by Tuesday afternoon, they screw up and they say, oh, geez, I screwed up. I'll start it again next Monday. And then they eat crap all week long, waiting for next Monday to roll around so they can restart their diet. What you need to do, whenever you screw up one meal, you get back on track for your very next meal. That's it. You don't delay. Don't say, I'm going to wait till tomorrow. I'm going to wait till next week. No, the next meal. So if you screw up your lunch, for your dinner, you get back on track. You screw up your dinner for your very next meal, get back on track. And sometimes you can even, depending on the degree of screw up that you had, you can even overcompensate for it. For example, let's say you had a cheat meal, and you ate more than you should have or whatever. Then you can try and overcompensate for that the next day, probably go a little bit low carb, probably bump up your cardio a little bit to kind of balance it out. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this, you try and justify cheat meals with more cardio or whatever, but it's a strategy that you can implement from time to time if you do screw up, to help to offset some of the damage done. So if you do screw up, get back on track for your next meal, and then you, like for example, if you overate, then you might want to go a little bit lower calorie, lower carb for a few days to kind of balance out. Maybe, extend those cardio sessions a little bit more to expend more calories, and just focus on the consistency over the long term. Another thing that I find helps a lot as well is having a plan in place, not just kind of winging your diet, but actually having a structured plan in place where you know what you're going to eat in advance, rather than waiting until you're hungry and then looking around, well, what am I going to eat? Have a plan in place, have food prepared in advance, have good quality choices. So prepare the staples in advance. For example, earlier in the video chat, we were talking about cooking chicken in bulk. I mean, that's something great. If you have chicken breasts in bulk ready to go, then when it's time for a meal, there's no questioning, okay, what am I going to eat or whatever? Boom, you've got the food ready to go. So planning in advance, having some sort of structure to your meal plans is huge, because it prevents you from getting to the point where you're hungry, your blood sugar's low, you're irritable, and you just want to eat something right away, and then you grab whatever's quickly available. If you have good quality, healthy food available, then it's much easier to make a better quality nutrition choice, and less likely for you to grab something that you shouldn't eat and that you'll feel guilty about afterwards. So hopefully, Daniel, that helps with your diet strategy. And again, if this is something that you need some help with, I mean, I do help people with customized diet and training programs. So just head on over to my website at leehayward.com. And if you want, we can even jump on a Skype call or something like that and discuss your situation personally. I do that from time to time. In fact, right after this video chat, I have a Skype call lined up with a gentleman who wants to discuss his nutrition program. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can head on over to my website and book an appointment, and I'll be more than happy to jump on and have a chat with you. And these calls, it's totally free. I mean, it's something that I do to kind of just help you out. So I mean, if you would like to, just head on over to leehayward.com, click on the coaching tab, and there's a link there where you can sign up for a free 20-minute coaching call with me. All right, let's see what else we got. Fahid is asking, what's my age? I'm 39 going on 40. I'll be 40 this fall. That's my age right now. Okay, Mir is joining us, and he says, does eating chia seeds help you through cutting by giving you the full stomach feeling? Chia seeds are very nutritious. They're a great source of omega-3s, a good source of fiber. So indirectly, they can help with aiding with the fullness, but I wouldn't go overboard with it. I wouldn't like kind of try and fill yourself up with chia seeds and thinking that that's going to be an appetite suppressant, but it's something that I like to include with my diet. Like, for example, I might sprinkle some chia seeds on a salad, sprinkle in some with my oatmeal, throw them in with a blender smoothie or something like that. But again, they are a very healthy food. Again, great source of omega-3s and high in fiber as well. All right, let's head on back over to the other video chat. We have XXK for Rilzex. Again, I'm sure there's probably a way to pronounce that username, but you know who you are. Bottom line, you know who you are. Let's see what we got here. What's the best way for advanced lifters to diet down to lose weight without counting calories and not losing much muscle or gym performance? Do you just use portion control, or if so, how? All right, what's the best way for an advanced lifter to diet down, lose weight without counting calories and not losing much muscle? First off, the food choices you make, that would be the step one. And I'll kind of give you an example of how I transition from a seafood diet, meaning you see food, you eat food, and there's no real rhyme or reason to it, to a structured fat loss cutting diet. for the first month, I would just clean up the diet. And what I mean by cleaning it up is anything that you know you should not be eating, cut it out. If you're eating pizza and burgers and French fries and going to the drive-through window and cake and cookies and chips and crap, anything that you know you should not be eating, right? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I mean, you just look at it. Is this helping me or is this hindering me? And if it's hindering you, don't eat it. And just swap it out for good, natural, wholesome foods. You know, lean protein, complex carbs, lots of fruits and veggies, just the basic stuff, right? It doesn't have to be complicated, just the basics. That's step one. I would do that for the first month. Don't need to reduce your food intake. You don't need to count calories. You don't need to go hungry or anything like that. Just make better choices. And in addition to that, I would do at least a half an hour of cardio per day. I mean, if you wanted to do it in a separate session, that would be ideal. If you wanted to throw it on as an add-on to your weight training workouts, that's fine as well. But eat clean and do a half hour cardio per day. For most people, you're going to see an improvement from that alone. Just those two things, eating clean, doing cardio, boom. You're probably going to lose several pounds of body fat from that alone. Once that stops working for you, you've kind of hit a plateau with that, then you need to get a bit more strict. That's when you can kind of implement more of a carbohydrate timing strategy. So in that scenario, what I'd recommend is saving the majority of your carbohydrate intake for after you exercise. So for example, let's say you get up first thing in the morning, you go for a cardio session. Then after that cardio session, you can enjoy a meal with a good serving of complex carbohydrates. Let's say you do weight training in the afternoon. After your weight training workout, you can have a meal, post-workout meal with a good serving of carbohydrates. For all your other meals, try and keep them low carb. So it'd be lean protein, green veggies, you know, steak and salad, chicken and salad, you know, something along those lines. So you're going to eat protein and veggies and healthy fat for the majority of your meals. And then for your post-exercise meals, you can have protein, veggies, and complex carbohydrates. That's the next phase I would go into the program. That would, again, that step would help most people lose even more fat. You're going to lose several pounds more fat from that alone. Once that starts to plateau, then we can probably bump it up to a more advanced carbohydrate cycle diet where you'll actually purposely go through phases of higher carbs, phases of medium carbs, phases of lower carbs. From that point, we could probably experiment with intermittent fasting or different strategies like that, some of these more advanced strategies. But I always start with the fundamentals. Start with the basics first and try and diet on as high of a caloric intake as you can while still moving in the right direction. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make when it comes to fat loss is they try and diet too hard too soon. You know, that instead of building it up gradually, they go on like a crash diet. You know, I'm going to go low carb, or I'm going to go keto, or I'm going to go intermittent fasting, and they drastically cut their calories, drastically bump up their calories, and kind of go have the overkill approach, trying to lose fat as fast as possible. Now, that can work to a certain degree, but again, it's overkill, because once you start to plateau with that approach, where do you go from there? You know, I mean, if you're dieting on 1,000 calories a day and doing 2 hours of cardio a day, where do you go once that stops working for you? You know, are you going to go to 500 calories a day and then do 4 hours of cardio? I mean, no, you can't do that. So I like to take a conservative approach and, again, diet on as high of a calorie intake as you can while still burning body fat in the process. And this gives you room to progress and move forward when your body plateaus. And plateaus are inevitable. I don't care what program you're following, what diet you're following, or who you are, or how good your genetics are. Everybody's going to hit a plateau at some point or another. And when you do hit that plateau, then you need to have a plan in place on how you're going to move forward and get past that plateau. So that's where some more advanced strategies and again, having a coach to help guide you through the process can really help. But step one, cut out the crap and do more cardio. Boom. Do that for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm guarantee you're going to see some progress just from that alone. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on here. We have Safa's joining us. This is had a great birthday with I can't pronounce the name, someone the other week. My question is, what's the best way to get rips on your body? I guess you mean to lose body fat. And I've already covered some strategies for losing body fat, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that. But again, thanks for tuning in and for joining. Daniel's joining us here saying, any tips on building boulder shoulders? What exercises would you recommend? When it comes to the shoulders, you really need to look at the whole shoulder complex. You have, of course, isolation exercises for all three heads of the delts, front, side, and rear delts. You want to do something for each of those, especially the rear delts. The rear delts often get neglected. So I would recommend making sure that you're including some sort of isolation works for all those areas. You're also going to do some sort of overhead pressing exercise. Could be like a dumbbell press, a barbell press, machine press, but some sort of overhead press, and then some sort of shrug. And the shrug is not directly the deltoids per se, but it's going to work the entire upper back area and help to pack on mass to your shoulders. So if you include in your workout an overhead press, isolation for all three heads of the delts, I'll be honest, for most people, the front delt isolation, you can probably be a bit conservative on that because the front delts kind of get a lot of stimulation from your pressing exercises for your chest and triceps in addition to your shoulder workouts. So you might want to be a little bit conservative, just do a few sets for the front delts. That's more than enough, but place most of the emphasis on the side and the rear delts for the isolation work, and then finish off with some shrugs. Another one that's also good is things like farmer's walks. That's also a really good one for the whole shoulder and upper back area as well. But if you include all those different areas and you know, in your shoulder workouts, you're going to see some good progress. One of the things you want to be cautious on with shoulders is overtraining, because they do get indirect stimulation from your chest and your arm workouts as well as your back workouts. So if you're training chest, you know, hard and heavy, you're training your arms hard and heavy, you're training your back hard and heavy, you're probably only going to need one direct isolated shoulder workout per week, because there's going to be a lot of carryover between those other body parts as well. So you want to make sure that you get adequate recovery in there to allow for maximum growth. Okay. Ervin's joining us saying, Lee, you're a top man and I love your bodybuilding tips. Thanks. I appreciate the comment, Ervin. Glad you do enjoy them. Thanks for your support and tuning in. Okay, I got some repetitive questions here. A lot about diet and cardio. I've already covered a lot about that, so I'm just going to move on. We have Warm Pup saying, Lee, I have a temporary made rack. I've been doing Anderson squats, bottom up squats, begin squatting from the bottom rather than from the beginning, standing up. What's your opinion on this type of squat? Squatting from the pins up is a lot harder than doing a traditional squat where you start from the top and rebound out of the bottom. Both are beneficial, right? There's advantages to both, but what you'll find is squatting from the bottom up builds a lot of starting strength. It's kind of similar to the deadlift in that sense, where you're starting from a dead stop and having to generate force to get that weight moving. Whereas if you start from the top, you have a bit of momentum. You get that rebound as you lower the weight and you rebound out of the bottom. So doing squats from the bottom up, it's a harder variation. Again, I'm not saying that one is necessarily better or worse, but it's a nice alternative to your squat. And I mean, if you want to bring up your squat, that's another strategy that you can incorporate. Try doing squats from the bottom up to just help to stimulate more of that explosive starting strength. The only challenge with that is sometimes it's hard to get into proper position when you're doing a bottom up squat, because it doesn't feel as natural in the setup. One of the variations that you can do that's kind of the best of both worlds is a box squat, where you actually start from the top, sit down onto a box, pause momentarily, and then stand up from the squat that way. Because with the box squat, it's more of a natural movement than it is when you're doing squats from the bottom up. And so, again, all these different variations are beneficial and they have their place in your training, but those are some that you might want to look into. Again, it's certainly more of an advanced strategy. I mean, if you're still in the beginner intermediate phase, just regular squats alone is going to be adequate. But if you're trying to push some of the numbers, bust past plateaus, then some of these more advanced squat variations can definitely help. Okay, we have James joining us asking about blood flow restriction training. I already covered that earlier. Yes, I have used it, and I have videos on YouTube. So if you just do a search for Lee Hayward blood flow restriction training, you'll see some videos where I go into my experiences and opinions about that. Woodulos is joining us, and he's asking, what's a good amount of sodium to shoot for on a daily basis? And that is a wild card. It really depends on how much water you're drinking, how much you're sweating. It depends on what kind of climate you're living in. Sodium and water intake should be corresponding. I mean, if you're drinking more water, you should consume more sodium to balance it out. So again, I'm not going to give a really hard set number, but one thing I will say is error on the side of consuming more, right? More sodium and more water, because the way your body works is it will use what it needs and flush out the rest. So it's not like you're going to have a surplus of sodium or a surplus of water in your system, right? Your body is going to utilize what it needs and flush out the rest. And if you're training hard, you're sweating, and you're eating a lot of food and processing all this, again, your body needs that sodium and it needs that water to properly function. So I would just recommend, on within reason, more is better in this situation. All right. Okay, let's see what else we got here. We have Safa is joining us, saying we love your channel. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Woodulos is joining us. Well, I already asked this question. He says he's joining us from Scotland. Poke Goo says, what are some ideal foods for losing belly fat? I'm not fat. I just want my abs to come out. The best way, I mean, we did cover some fat loss strategies and suggestions already. The best foods, if you want to lose fat in a hurry, lean protein, green veggies, and healthy fat. If you base your diet around those foods, that's going to speed up fat loss. And then have your carbohydrates strategically timed after workouts. If you want to lose fat in a hurry, that's what I would recommend. Because the carbohydrates, the complex carbs and stuff, I'm not saying that they don't serve a point, because they certainly do. They do help to fuel your workouts. These do help to aid with muscle growth because they keep you strong and full. But if you want to maximize fat loss, focus primarily on the nutrient-dense foods. Again, the protein, the veggies, and the healthy fat. That's what the majority of your diet should be made of. And that will certainly put you in the right direction towards losing body fat. Okay, what else we got here? I'm just going to scroll through. I got a lot of questions coming through here. Have Eric joining us. Eric is one of our sponsored members of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. And he says, hey, Lee, I've been following your tips and beginner workout, and it's going great so far. I says, I work out at home, and I've reached my machine's limit for leg extensions. What are some alternatives? All right, you've maxed out the machine. Well, first off, congratulations for doing that. That's a huge accomplishment. Some alternatives that you can do. One, slow down your repetitions. So rather than just pumping them out in a fast and explosive fashion, you can slow them down and really focus on squeezing and contracting your quadriceps with each repetition. So as you extend your legs out, squeeze and flex your quads, hold it at the top for a second or so, and before returning to the bottom. So again, slow down the cadence, slow down the tempo, and by doing this, you're going to get more muscle stimulation from the weight that you have on the weight stack. Another thing is just to do more repetitions. I mean, if you're normally doing sets of 10, then bump it up, sets of 12, sets of 15, sets of 20, more repetitions. The more reps you do, the more muscle stimulation, the more time under tension you're going to get. You can even, one of the strategies that I used to use for leg extensions, especially when I was getting ready for bodybuilding competitions, is when I would do leg extensions in my workouts, I would shoot for 100 total repetitions. So I would do as many sets as needed in order to get 100 total reps. So, I mean, that could be, just throw out some numbers, could be 4 sets of 25, could be 5 sets of 20, could be 10 sets of 10, whatever. But the way it would work in reality is I probably pump out a set to failure. Let's say you did 25 reps on your first set. And then for the next set, might only be able to get 20 reps. And then the next set, might only be able to get 15. And then might only be able to get 10. And then just keep going in that fashion, you know, doing like rest pause sets until I completed 100 total reps. And I found that that was a killer way to really get a lot of pump, a lot of muscle stimulation, and you don't need to use a lot of weight. So, I mean, if you maxed out your machine's weight stack, you can certainly use some of these strategies. Another one that you can use if you really want to do the you know, hard, heavy type of training, low rep training, would be single leg extensions. And once you go from doing double leg extensions to single leg extensions, you essentially double the weight of your stack. So, I mean, now you can progress all over again with single leg extensions. So don't use the whole I've reached my weight stacks limits to kind of, don't use that to prevent you from progressing further, because you can always progress further. You can always make it more challenging. It just takes a little bit of creativity. And again, congrats on the consistency with your workouts. And again, thank you for your support. It is much appreciated. Okay. Got Jay joining us, and he says, Lee, I'm following a ketogenic diet. I'm about 28 pounds overweight. Should I lose fat first before I start to build muscle? No, you should try to do both simultaneously, build muscle and burn fat simultaneously. This is a common misconception that a lot of people have, thinking that, okay, I have to diet and lose the fat before I start working out to build the muscle. No, the fastest way to burn fat is to, in fact, gain more muscle. When you have more muscle on your body, your metabolism is going to be higher. Muscle burns more energy 24/7, even if you're not exercising. I mean, the more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn, even while you sleep. So building muscle is one of the fastest ways to help burn body fat. So you want to do both. You want to focus on weight training to stimulate muscle growth. You want to focus on cardio training to help directly burn body fat. And then, of course, follow that up with a proper diet to ensure that you're in a caloric deficit. Still eating enough quality nutrition to provide adequate nourishment for your body and to fuel your muscle growth, but not so much that you're going to be storing those calories as excess body fat. So you still want to be in a caloric deficit so that you can tap into the stored fat for energy. But you need both. You need the weight training to stimulate the muscle growth in addition to the cardio to tap into the body fat. We have another Jay joining us. He says, what's my opinion on intermittent fasting? I've covered this in previous video chats before. Intermittent fasting is an advanced strategy that you can incorporate. It does work, but it's not a miracle program. I mean, just because you're going for a prolonged period without eating doesn't give you a free ticket to eat whatever you want when you do eat. That's one of the problems a lot of people make when it comes to intermittent fasting. They think, okay, I'm going to, you know, eat one meal a day or 2 meals a day or whatever it happens to be, and they think, well, I can eat whatever I want because I've been fasting all day long and now I can just pig out and eat whatever. You know, that may work to a certain degree, but if you want to maximize your results with intermittent fasting, you still need to follow the sound principles of proper bodybuilding nutrition. You still need to, you know, eat protein and veggies and keep your food choices natural and non-processed. It doesn't give you a free ticket to pig out on junk food. So what I recommend for most people, like if I'm coaching someone brand new, I would not have them start off with intermittent fasting. I would have them start off with a more traditional bodybuilding diet, eating more frequently throughout the day in order to develop the positive eating habits that they need. I want them to learn about nutrition, and I want them to learn, you know, what foods are good sources of protein, what are good sources of veggies and good sources of complex carbs and all that. I want them to get the basis of nutrition mastered. And then if we need to progress further on from there, we can incorporate different strategies, be it carb cycling or you know, intermittent fasting or whatever, to help speed up the process from there on. But I always like to start with the fundamentals. Start with the base of bodybuilding nutrition first, because that is going to carry over into the more advanced strategies that you'll probably utilize later on. Okay, let's see what else we got here. That ectomorph is joining us. He says, are you natty? Yes, I am natty. Yes, Yes, L, yes. Again, yes, L, yes. If I'm mispronouncing your username, I do apologize. He says, will high reps, 10 to 20 reps, be optimal for building muscle and burning fat at the same time? The number of reps you do really doesn't impact muscle growth and fat loss. I mean, you can build muscle with high reps. You can build muscle with low reps. You can burn body fat by following high reps, and you can burn body fat following low reps. What matters is the overall picture of your diet, your training, your cardio, everything combined. I mean, if you're following a high rep program with a caloric surplus, then that could be a great bulking program. For example, the 20 rep squat routine is technically a high rep program, but it's often combined with a caloric surplus for building mass. Vice versa, sometimes you'll see some competitive powerlifters who are trying to make a weight class will follow a heavy, low rep power training program, but be following it with a caloric deficit, you know, a cutting diet in order to cut weight. So they're following heavy, low rep training with a caloric restriction in order to cut weight. So the number of reps doesn't impact whether you bulk or cut or gain or lose or whatever. It's the overall picture. So you need to look at all the variables combined. And of course, the biggest one is your diet. If you're in a caloric surplus, you're going to gain. If you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose. That's the big one, not necessarily the number of repetitions that you perform. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Eric has got another question again. Eric, one of our channel sponsors here, says, I can't do a full body workout all at once due to my schedule. How can I split my workout on consecutive days for best results? He says he's 49 years old. Anything special he should be mindful of with regards to his diet? What I would recommend, Eric, if you can't do a full body workout, you can do an upper lower split. That's one of the easiest progressions. And very often, this is how I would recommend most people to start. If you're brand new to weight training, start with a total body workout done 3 days a week. When you want to step it up to a more advanced level from there, then I would recommend doing an upper lower body split. So probably upper body one day, lower body the next, take a day off. Upper body one day, lower body the next, take a day off, repeat. If you want to progress further from that, then we could get into like a push-pull legs, where you train your pushing muscles, chest, shoulders, triceps one day, your pulling muscles, back and biceps the next day, then your legs, obviously your lower body muscles the following day, and then repeat in that cycle. So push-pull legs will be a more advanced strategy or a more advanced split again. So right now you're doing full body workouts and you're saying you're struggling to do those due to your schedule. Move to an upper lower body split. And if you want a sample of that, go to my main YouTube channel under the beginner workouts, which is right up on the main channel page. There's a workout for total body, and there's also workouts for upper lower body split. And that's what I would recommend you follow, the upper lower body split for the beginners. And that would be a great progression from the total body program. All right, let's jump back over to Facebook, because I know we got several people joining us here as well. Okay. We have Fahid joining us, and he says, Lee, I get exhausted if I train every day. Should I consume more calories? No, I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend that you give yourself more rest time between workouts. If I train every single day, I get burnt out and exhausted as well. I find that I make my best progress if I either train 2 days on, 1 day off, or sometimes even 1 day on, 1 day off. You need to factor in the rest and recovery days in order to allow your body to grow. If you try and train every single day, I mean, I know you think that it's beneficial, but sometimes you're actually digging yourself into a rut, because you're training and you're breaking down your body faster than it can recover. And that's why you're feeling exhausted and you're not able to keep up with the workouts. So factor in more recovery days. What I would recommend for the next few weeks, just train every other day. So work out 1 day, take the next day off. Work out 1 day, take the next day off. And do that for the next 3 weeks. And I can almost guarantee that you're going to see a noticeable improvement. You're going to have more strength and energy. When you go to the gym, you're going to feel rested and recovered, and you'll be able to lift heavier and train with more intensity. I mean, having that day of rest in between each workout is just going to totally refresh and recharge your body. And I'm speaking from experience. Like when I was in like mass building bulk up phases, I would make my best gains by working out every other day. If I wanted to bump it up, say for fat loss, I would usually train 2 days on, 1 day off. And that little bit of extra training frequency really helped. But again, for mass building or for someone who's borderline overtraining, such as yourself, scale things back to every other day. And I can pretty much guarantee you're going to notice a big improvement over the next few weeks just from that alone. Okay, what other questions we got? We got Matt joining us. We got Nathan is joining us. Marcus is joining us. Marcus says, Lee is a legend. My first YouTube mentor totally motivated me 7 years back when I was a skinny runt trying to get big and look good. Top Canadian man, but tuna mixed with natural yogurt is horrible. Did I ever recommend mixing tuna with yogurt? Maybe I did. I've got a ton of videos on YouTube. I mean, who knows? Maybe I did back in the day recommend you mix tuna with yogurt. But don't do it now. Anyway, thanks for your comment, Marcus. Like I said, glad to help, and I really appreciate your support over the past 7 years. We have Gabriel joining us. He says, Lee, how are you? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Says, I've been doing 5x5 full body workout. I love it, but my friends are saying that for aesthetics, it's not the best and that I should do a split. What are your thoughts? All right, this is a good question. First off, when it comes to aesthetics, your genetics play a huge role in this. And all you can really do to change the aesthetics of your body is you can build muscle and you can burn body fat. That's it. And you can accomplish that with a 5x5 full body workout. You know, I mean, as you get more advanced, as you like, if you're pushing the limits and thinking about like competitive bodybuilding or something like that, then yeah, you may need to incorporate more isolation and to work on, it's maybe slacking off on some of your stronger body parts and putting more emphasis on some of your weaker body parts and things like that. But for the majority of people who are in that beginner / intermediate phase of training, just focus on getting bigger and stronger all over will improve your aesthetics. You know, you don't really need to try and make it too complicated initially. So that's what I would recommend. I mean, if you're doing the 5x5 program, you're enjoying it, you're making gains, you're getting stronger with it, ride that program out for as long as you can. Ride that wave of momentum. And then, of course, when that program hits a plateau and you get bored with it and everything else, then you can change it up and maybe do a more traditional bodybuilding split routine or something like that. But when it comes to aesthetics, most of it is genetic. And, the training side of things, it does help to a degree, but it doesn't have as big a role as you may think. It's not like, okay, you're not going to be able to improve your aesthetics doing a power training program, because you certainly can. I mean, if you look at some competitive power lifters or some competitive weightlifters, I mean, they're not doing bodybuilding isolation stuff, but some of these guys have very lean, muscular, aesthetic looking physiques. You know, it's the same with CrossFit athletes. I mean, some of the top CrossFit guys, I mean, have very lean, muscular, aesthetic physiques. And most of it is just due to their genetics and, of course, years of hard training. It's not necessarily because they're doing some magical, 6 day per week bodybuilding split routine. That's not the case. It's just the consistency over the long term. And, of course, their genetic structure is what has the biggest impact in how your body's ultimately going to look. And, of course, getting your body fat low makes a big difference as well. I mean, if you have a muscular physique, but it's covered with a layer of body fat, you're not going to look too aesthetically pleasing. But if you trim off that excess body fat, then all of a sudden you're going to look, you'll see the lines and the details and stuff that you would normally never see if you had an extra layer of blubber covering it. All right, Lorenzo's joining us, and he says, happy Friday, and happy Friday to you, my friend. Amir is joining us and saying, thanks for the advice. You're very welcome. Travis is joining us. Roman is joining us. Fabio is joining us, and he says, should I try something like trenbolone injections to gain fast results? Would you recommend it? I'm not a steroid anabolic coach, and I would not recommend it. First off, depending on where you live, it's illegal for most people. I know certain parts of the world it's not illegal and everything else, but anytime it comes to hormone supplementation, be that, you know, whatever it may be, testosterone or any other type thing, I would recommend that you do it under a doctor's supervision. You know, I'm not going to tell you, hey, don't do it or whatever. I mean, you know, you're a big boy, you can do whatever you like, but be smart about it. Do it under a doctor's supervision. Just don't go buying some, you know, black market bathtub brew and trying to do it on your own, because you could be causing yourself a lot more harm than good. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If you are going to do it, and if it's legal in your area or whatever, still do it under a doctor's supervision and be smart about it. I mean, this stuff is serious, right? I mean, it's not something that should be taken lightly. Do your homework, read up on it, and again, get some, you know, solid advice from a medical professional. Carlos is joining us. He says, creatine or branched chain amino acids, if you had to pick only one. I would, okay, first off, when it comes to amino acids, most people these days are opting for essential amino acids rather than the branched chain amino acids. Essential amino acids still contain the branched chain amino acids, but they contain a lot more amino acids as well. So if you're looking for an amino acid supplement, I would recommend looking into EAAs rather than BCAAs. But as far as creatine or amino acids, if I had to choose one, I mean, ideally you would choose both, but of course, if I had to choose one, I think I would choose the creatine. And the reason for that is you can get your amino acids through your protein food. I mean, all the protein foods you eat have amino acids. If you're taking protein powders, you're getting amino acids. So you're getting amino acids just through consuming a high protein diet, but you're not getting a lot of creatine. You are getting some, but you're not getting optimal levels that are going to produce maximum results. So if I had to choose one or the other, I would take the creatine over the amino acids. But of course, the best scenario will be to take both of them. All right, let's see what else we got here. Debbie is joining us, and she says, I'll be doing a body pump 3 times a week for an hour. Is this too much? If not, how to know when to increase weight? I'm just trying to tone and sculpt my body. Well, I'm not exactly sure what body pump is. I'm assuming it's probably some sort of group fitness class where you're doing some resistance training 3 times a week for an hour. That's not too much for most people. Now, again, I don't know your fitness background or your work capacity or whatever, but again, a 3 workout sessions per week is pretty standard. I mean, usually, like, we're coaching people and starting people off, we'll even have, you know, raw beginners go to the gym and work out 3 times a week. So that's pretty standard. What I would recommend, if this is your first time to working out, just go at your own pace. I mean, depending on what kind of atmosphere you're training in, you're probably going to have some people there who are very advanced and very fit. You're probably going to have some people who are intermediate, and then you're going to have people who are just brand new beginners. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing. Just focus on your own individual performance. And if you find that the instructor is pushing you too much too soon, slack off. You know, I mean, just work within your own work capacity, work within your own pain threshold, and realize that just by being consistent, every time you do that workout, it's going to get a little bit easier. So week 1 is probably going to be torture. You know, you're probably going to really struggle with it. You're probably going to have to back off and go slower, fall behind. If so, who cares? That's just part of the process. Week 2, probably going to be a little bit easier. You know, you may be able to keep up a little bit more. You're going to feel a little bit more comfortable. Week 3, even a little bit better. And before you know it, after you've been doing this for, 6 weeks, 8 weeks or longer, you're going to get into the rhythm and actually be able to keep up with the rest of the class. But it is going to be a slow, gradual process. But just pace yourself. Just go in there, kind of go through the motions for the first couple weeks, get comfortable with it, and then let your body progress and adapt on its own. And it will. You'll find that just by being consistent, doing those 3 workouts a week, you're going to see an improvement each time out. All right, let's jump over. How are we doing for time? Oh, sugar shit, shampoo shine. We are well over an hour. I usually do. I got the gift of gab sometimes when I get on these video chats and I just start talking. So yeah, I'm gone over an hour here. So that means I'm probably going to start to clue this up pretty soon. I know there's a ton of questions coming through, and I do appreciate all the questions, and of course I do appreciate all the supports. Yeah, let's tell you what, guys. I actually have a coaching call that I got to do right after this video chat, so I am going to clue it up. Again, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. And next Friday, same time, same place, I'm going to be doing another live video chat. So I'll probably keep with this whole 2 video chat things going on. I have the YouTube going over here, I got Facebook going over here, and I find that just works well to reach people from both spectrums. So again, I'll probably keep that going for next week as well. So have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to talking to you next Friday. Take care. Over and out. End it over here. Yes, and end it over here. Take care, guys.